may not want her to watch this.
We had a deal.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania has arrived to kick off Phase 5 of the MCU and bring Jonathan Majors' Kang the Conqueror to the big screen for the first and probably not the last time. One thing hasn't changed from previous MCU movies though. We still have a lot of questions regarding the more head-scratching moments of the sequel, which is par for the course when 90% of your movie takes place inside a wacky microscopic universe. From Quantumania's more puzzling choices with Kang and Janet to the floating oddity that is MODOK, let's dive into the biggest WTF questions surrounding this new movie.
So, what's it gonna be? Ant-Man.
It's becoming a frustrating hallmark of many recent Marvel movies that they don't seem to know which character should be the main focus. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is basically a Scarlet Witch movie in all but name. In Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Shuri's story is often upstaged by the likes of Queen Ramonda and Namor. Quantumania is no different. The title may read Ant-Man and the Wasp, but neither character really feels like the main protagonist, and honestly the Wasp barely does anything in the film. Even Scott only experiences a loose approximation of a character arc. This is a sequel far more interested in characters like Kang and Michelle Pfeiffer's Janet Van Dyne. Janet almost feels like the true protagonist in the first half of the movie before being relegated to the background in the latter half. Said latter half then becomes almost wholly preoccupied with Kang, and at some point we have to wonder why Marvel even made a third Ant-Man movie when clearly what they were going for was more of a Kang origin story. My guess? Name brand recognition.
You think you can beat me? I am Kang!
Quantumania introduces Kang as the greatest threat to the multiverse. He's so dangerous, in fact, that his other selves in the Council of Cross-Time Kangs exiled him to the quantum realm. If left to his own devices, the Conqueror would enslave all of existence, but apparently all that needs to be done to stop Kang in his tracks is to steal his fuel source. Why exactly did Kang have such a difficult time repairing his ship? We learned that Pym particles are the key to recharging the engine and allowing Kang to escape the quantum realm, but as advanced as Pym particle tech is, shouldn't it be child's play to a guy from the 31st century? Why was Kang lost until Janet lent her Pym particle expertise to the problem? Shouldn't he have had the benefit of 1,000 extra years of scientific progress and knowledge? Maybe the issue is that he spent too much of his life conquering and not enough time actually understanding the science behind his incredible ship. That must be it.
There's nothing here.
What'd you say?
It's a suit. It's an old motorcycle suit.
In some ways, Quantumania makes for an odd follow-up to the previous two Ant-Man movies. Many of the supporting characters that we've come to know and love are just MIA this time around. Randall Park's Jimmy Woo appears in a split-second cameo, and David Dastmalchian plays a completely different character here, voicing the Quantum Realm resident Veb, but that leaves so many wonderful characters out of the picture. We don't get a hilarious recap of past movies, courtesy of Michael Peña's Luis. That had become kind of a standard thing from Ant-Man movies.
What?
Luis's partners in crime, Kurt and Dave, are nowhere to be found, and the same goes for Judy Greer's Maggie and Bobby Cannavale's Jim. The obvious answer is that these characters were mostly left out because Quantumania spends so little time in the real world. And even so, there's an argument to be made that Quantumania might have been a better film if there were more scenes set outside of the quantum realm. There had to be some way to squeeze Kurt and Luis into the picture somehow, maybe give them one of the post-credit scenes?
It made a monster who thinks he's a god.
It can be frustrating when a movie's conflict stems from the fact that one character is sitting on knowledge that they elect not to share with the rest of the group, and that's exactly what happens in Quantumania, as Janet fails to warn her family about Kang until it's too late and everybody's trapped in the quantum realm with a genocidal time traveler. We're still not sure why Janet was so dead set against telling her family about what happened with Kang. As much as the film teases the idea that she feels guilt over unleashing a monster, we eventually learn that she turned against Kang as soon as she discovered his true nature. So what does she really have to hide? Why did Bill Murray's Krylar accuse her of causing great devastation if all she did was inadvertently help a mass murderer jumpstart his car? And maybe the Avengers would have liked to know that there's a potential disaster brewing in another dimension. Just throwing that out there. And for that matter, why didn't Janet speak up at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp when they're preparing to send Scott into the quantum realm? Wouldn't she have wanted to warn Scott about what he was stumbling into? Probably safe to assume that Marvel didn't really have Kang in mind when they were wrapping up the second movie, but still, we like to ask these questions.
I'm the man who can give you the one thing you want.
What's that?
Time.
We know from past Marvel movies that time passes differently in the quantum realm. It's a completely separate plane of reality that exists beneath our own, and if you know how to navigate it, you can unlock the power of time travel. Last time Scott traveled to the quantum realm, he was gone for a matter of hours from his perspective, yet 5 years had passed in the real world. So why does that rule only sometimes seem to hold true? Our heroes spend the majority of Quantumania's events in the quantum realm, but there's no indication that any significant amount of time passed them by in the real world. Even after Scott and Hope are stranded at the end of the film, time in the quantum realm and time in the real world seems to be in lockstep as Cassie calculates her rescue. And that's to say nothing of Janet, who appears to have aged 30 years in the quantum realm, while she spent 30 years missing in the real world. It seems like time actually works the same in both dimensions, except when the plot demands otherwise. Pretty suspicious, Marvel.
You're an interesting man. Scott Lang.
Everything has been coming up MODOK lately. This iconic villain recently starred in his own animated series on Hulu and served as the main villain of the Marvel's Avengers video game, and now he just made his live-action debut in Quantumania. But that raises one important question: why? Now, it's not that we're not fond of the big-headed villain or feel that he has no place in the MCU, but why introduce MODOK only to treat him as a glorified sidekick to another villain? Quantumania takes MODOK's acronym a little bit too literally, and sure, he's good at killing, but his real power comes from his prodigious brain. He should be calling the shots, not acting as Kang's comically inept lackey. This wouldn't be as big of an issue if Quantumania didn't make a point of killing off Darren Cross and ensuring that we won't get any future MODOK appearances. So much for having MODOK rebuilding AIM and headlining an Avengers or Captain America movie.
I will take my revenge on those who banished me.
And I will burn them out of time.
Quantumania makes a concerted effort to position Kang as a formidable threat. He alludes to having fought the Avengers many times in the past, to the point that he can't even remember all the heroes that he's killed. He confuses Ant-Man for Thor at one point, but later seems to know Scott's entire history.
You're not the one with the hammer.
That's Thor. Similar body types. Who are you?
Bad writing, or is Kang just being tricky? Whatever the case, if we buy into the hype, this is a villain who outclasses even the mighty Thanos. But is it just hype? The climax of Quantumania certainly doesn't make a strong case for Kang as an Avengers-level threat. The massive army he spent decades assembling is torn apart by a group of plucky rebels and some super smart ants. Kang ultimately fails to beat Ant-Man in a one-on-one fight, again suggesting the technology of the 21st century is somehow beyond his understanding. Perhaps the Avengers will have a harder fight when they face off against all of the Kangs, but one Kang is maybe not the challenge it was cracked up to be.
I'm an Avenger.
You're an Avenger. Have I killed you before?
Kang may have been soundly defeated by Scott in their final battle, but we doubt very much that this villain is actually dead, despite what the Council of Cross-Time Kangs seem to think. And frankly, we're not sure why Scott has managed to convince himself that Kang is gone. Kang's death comes when he's blasted by Scott's shrinking tech and squished right out of existence, except we just learned that Darren Cross survived this exact same type of disaster in the first movie, so why should Kang be any different? Rather than being dead, it seems more likely that Kang has been transported to whatever dimension exists beneath the quantum realm. Scott is right to be plagued by doubt at the end. This almost surely isn't the last time we're seeing the Conqueror in the MCU. And by almost surely, we mean definitely, because the next Avengers movie is called the Kang Dynasty. But what do you think? Are we gonna see one really evil Kang or a whole bunch of different kind of evil Kangs? Let us know in the comments. And also, who should play MODOK if they do in fact bring him back? I think we need a live-action Patton Oswalt floating head. Anyway, for all the goings on in the myriad timelines of the MCU, you are already in the right place. IGN.